The Arizona Wildcats beat the Stanford Cardinal. Final score: Arizona Wildcats 71 to the Stanford Cardinal 57. Um, I was reading uh, before this game how aggressive the Stanford Cardinal was, and I, I, I saw that in the stats because Stanford Cardinal had I think 7 steals in this game as compared to the Arizona Wildcats, which only had 1 steal in this game. Um, but there was something that kind of stood out to me was the points from the bench. I think the Arizona Wildcats had 25 points from the bench, and the Stanford Cardinal had 4 points from the bench. Now, I'm not quite sure how this works out because Sheffield is, I don't think he was a starter, so he was from the bench, and he scored, I think it was 17 points. So I don't know how they could come up with 4 bench points when Sheffield was from the bench and he had 17 points. So I'm not quite sure about that. But so Sheffield was for the Stanford Cardinal was the highest scorer for the Stanford Cardinal, and the U of A just had a heck of a time trying to guard against Sheffield. Um, I noticed that Anderson had a hard time guarding against Sheffield. Anderson I think he's a forward. And Sheffield is a guard, so you kind of expected there was a kind of a mismatch there as far as speed. I know that Anderson is pretty strong. I keep hearing about how strong Anderson is, but as far as the speed, that's a different story. So Sheffield, I think he's 6'5" or something like that. So he and Anderson is 6'9". So Sheffield like I said, is a guard, and Anderson is a forward. So there was a little bit of a mismatch there. So Anderson had a hard time defending against Sheffield whenever Sheffield would dribble, penetrate, and get inside that key. And another one that had a hard time against Sheffield that was kind of a mismatch too was Tollefson. Tollefson, I think, had 2 defensive breakdowns against Sheffield. So, and Tollefson, like I said, is a forward, so we got kind of a mismatch going on there. The other one that I saw that had a hard time with Sheffield was York. I think he had 1 defensive breakdown or 2 defensive breakdowns against Sheffield. I'm not quite sure. There was another player that had a defensive breakdown against Sheffield. Ristic actually had his defensive breakdowns were from Boherman, Boherman, I think that was his name. He had 3 defensive breakdowns against Boherman, or 2 defensive breakdowns against Boherman. So that was really what was trouble with that Ristic was having. But Ristic for the Arizona Wildcats, did get 9 defensive rebounds. So he did pretty good. Were they all defensive? I think maybe 8 of them were defensive, and 1 of them was offensive, because he's not a big offensive rebound type of guy. But Anderson, on the other hand, is usually a pretty good offensive rebound type of guy. And I think he had 8 total rebounds. I don't know how many of those rebounds were offensive. Maybe 2 or 3, maybe offensive rebounds. And I don't think Tarczewski had any offensive rebounds at all. But he did have, I think it was 9 or 8. No, it was 7. 7 defensive rebounds. I think that's what it was for Tarczewski. But then again, at the same time, then Tarczewski went to the foul line 9 times. So he was able to draw fouls off of those Stanford Cardinal. I think the Stanford Cardinal had 21 total fouls in the end, and the Arizona Wildcats had 20 total fouls. Um, I don't know specifically who was in foul trouble with the Stanford Cardinal. I think let's see, there was one guy that was that fouled out for the Stanford Cardinal. I think it was Humphrey. Yeah, I think Humphrey fouled out. Um, yeah, Humphrey fouled out. Humphrey is a forward also, um, but I think he's a freshman or a sophomore, so he's a little bit young. So you kind of expect him to get into foul trouble a little bit uh, more frequently. You expect freshmen or sophomores to get into a little bit more foul trouble than juniors or seniors, ones that have had a little bit more veteran experience. Um, let's see, we had two out of four from three-point land for Tollefson. So Tollefson, like I said, actually Miller was saying that Tollefson is a really good shooter, outside shooter, and he knocked down a couple shots, a couple three-pointer shots, and another one that knocked down a couple three-pointer shots was Allen. Allen knocked down a couple three-point. He was 2 for 4 from three-point land. I was kind of hoping that we would get a little bit more dribble penetration for the Arizona Wildcats on this game, but there was 9 turnovers for the Arizona Wildcats in the first half, and then they had 7 turnovers. Then the Arizona Wildcats had 7 turnovers in the second half, so they ended up with 16 turnovers. So that was kind of bad. I don't think that Miller's going to be too crazy about about 16 turnovers, which was not very good. But then they had 15 assists, so that's something that makes me very happy is whenever you get that amount of assists. I think their average is 16 assists or something like that a game. So they share the ball, and that's good. There's a lot of sharing the ball, and I think that one of the reasons why Stanford Cardinal was I think they just got overwhelmed. I think after maybe because it was 30-31 in the first half, but then as time progressed, then the Stanford Cardinal actually went on a 7-0 run and were able to get back into this game and actually win. They were beating the Arizona Wildcats 40-39 at one point. I think it was Humphrey that, or was it Boher, Bohaven was able to pull the Stanford Cardinal back into this game, but then he kind of went silent, and the Arizona Wildcats, I think, went on a 12-0 run or something like that, and really broke this game up, and the Arizona Wildcats pretty much dominated the rest of the game after that close score of 40-39. But the Arizona Wildcats did have a low-scoring game. The Arizona Wildcats just could not get inside of the key. They could just not dribble penetrate inside that key. And it's funny because the Stanford Cardinal is, I think there's 2 guys that are 6'9". I think, let's see, I think Humphrey and Roscoe Allen are both 6'9". So, and you got Tarczewski for the Arizona Wildcats, which is 7 foot, and then you got Anderson, which is 6'9", and then you got Tollefson, I think, which is 6'9". So the Arizona Wildcats weren't. I mean, they could have got inside, but it just seemed like that the Stanford Cardinal were like playing really, really aggressive defense and not allowing Caleb Tarszewski and Anderson and Tollefson to get those inside shots. I mean, Tollefson, it seems like Tollefson is more of an outside shooter, is what you get more from Tollefson than from the three-point line is more what you get from Tollefson than the inside. He seems like more of an outside guy beyond the arc than an inside guy. So that's kind of interesting about Tollefson. But Anderson usually he's a blue collar guy, and he usually gets that rebound inside the key pretty good. As far as those 9 turnovers in the first half, I was looking at the turnovers, and I think that it was Kadeem Allen had 3 turnovers, and Parker Jackson-Cartwright had 3 turnovers. I think it was Parker Jackson-Cartwright that had 3 assists or 4 assists, and Thompson actually had 4 assists, which was kind of interesting. I don't really think of a forward like Thompson as somebody that's really good at giving assists, but he did really good. He was feeling comfortable. I think he's from that area, so he was kind of playing at home, and so he was feeling comfortable, and that's one of the reasons why he knocked down 2 out of 4 from three-point land. So anyway, the Arizona Wildcats just had a really hard time getting inside that key and kind of pushing the ball inside. I think the Stanford Cardinal were somehow, in the first half, the Stanford Cardinal was somehow able to separate the Arizona Wildcats and separate them and pull them away from each other, and so they weren't playing so much team ball, and that's why the Stanford Cardinal were doing good in the first half, but then in the second half, then I think that they weren't playing as good of defense as they needed to, and I think the Arizona Wildcats were able to dribble, penetrate, get inside that key. Like I said, first half only like 1 offensive rebound for the Arizona Wildcats, but then in the second half I think they had 7 offensive rebounds or 6 offensive rebounds, so they were able to get inside that key and do some damage inside that key in the second half. So anyway, I think it was just a breakdown of the defense in the second half for the Stanford Cardinal, and that's why the Arizona Wildcats were able to pull out this victory. The Arizona Wildcats win this game 71 to the Stanford Cardinal 57.